Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday, the 7th of January 2023. I first of all would like to wish everybody a very happy new year, and I hope that the Christmas celebrations were enjoyed by everybody. It was lovely to walk back in the office this week and see everybody again and listen to the stories and news from the Christmas period. We are, however, straight back into things, and the newsletter for January is being prepared this week, with a view to sending it to the printers next week. In the newsletter will be information about the activities planned for 2023, together with the usual articles from members and volunteers alike, and save the dates, for example, the open day planned for March this year. Whilst recording this, it is Friday. The sun is shining through the window and I can feel the heat. It is lovely that the cold spell is now over, although it has been a little wet. Wishing everybody a very, very happy 2023. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
Happy New Year, everybody, from Chris and Brian. This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight Marching Band invited to London Band Week later this year. Local marching band Medina Marching Band has been invited to take part in the London Band Week 2023 this summer. The news was announced on New Year's Day and will see a performance at the London Tattoo at London's Excel Centre, London Docks and the Palace Parade Review in the King's Garden at Hampton Court Palace, and Drumline London in the week beginning the 1st of July. Vice Chair Kevin Downer has said, "This is a big event for the band, participating alongside some of the UK best youth marching bands and also the bands of HM Royal Marines, plus 2 college bands from the USA, the University of Tennessee bands, Pride of the Southland Band. They will be bringing a 350-strong band all the way from the USA. Also, the Sounds of Success Community Marching Band from the USA. We are proud to be representing the island at another prestigious event."
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Annual rugby charity match raised over £700 for the Isle of Wight MND Association. 50 players and a large crowd came together for the Isle of Wight Rugby Football Club's annual Christmas charity game, this year in aid of the Isle of Wight branch of the motor neurone disease MND Association. The event, held on Tuesday the 27th of December, raised over £700 for the charity, yet on the pitch charity was at a premium as both sides produced a scintillating match to entertain all present. MND fielded a strong squad with ex-Isle of Wight Rugby Football Club players featuring heavily, along with some visitors. With the match overseen by elite referee Adam Leal, all were aware that there was to be little that could be got away with, and this led to some pacey and flowing rugby. From the off, MND attacked with panache and opened the scoring out wide. Back responded Isle of Wight as Sam McQueen crossed and George Whish added the conversion. This was followed by a try for Luke Blackman. However, back came MND with a Jevon Dry score. The Isle of Wight side stretched ahead just before half-time as Alex Augustus crossed. In the second half, Isle of Wight stretched their lead with Blackman's second score. Both sides used their extensive benches and the pace and commitment were kept at a maximum. Isle of Wight were dominant up front, especially at scrum time, yet their backs had to be alert to the pace of the charity side. Whish chipped ahead and retrieved the ball to add to the score and convert. Back came MND with a Ned Guy score, but the island worked the ball near the MND line for Jamie Bishop to collect the pass and score. MND were not finished and scored through George Barles before the final whistle was blown. Isle of Wight Rugby Football Club 1534, MND Isle of Wight 1525. Isle of Wight Rugby Football Club and Isle of Wight Motor Neurone Disease Association would like to thank all players and everyone who supported the raffle and donated to the cause. This Saturday, Isle of Wight return to league action with both teams away to Portsmouth.
This is Chris reading an article from the Island Echo. 2023 will be a fantastic year for Island Theatre. January Theatre Preview. Wishing you all a very happy new year. After perusing the upcoming shows, I think 2023 will be a fantastic year for Island Theatre. January is traditionally a quieter month on the amateur theatre scene, but several groups are already casting and preparing for spring shows, which we can look forward to. Wight Island Players present Robin Hood and the Babes in the Wood at Bembridge Village Hall on Friday the 20th and Saturday the 21st, with a matinee on Sunday the 22nd of January. So why not extend the pantomime season and come along? Tickets can be ordered by email from whiteislandplayersbooking@gmail.com. Theatre Train are enrolling now for 2023. They offer professional theatre training for 3 to 18-year-olds in a way that is both fun and effective. More than a drama club, a dance school, or a singing group, their performing arts classes give children and young people a place to explore the world and create performances. This process gives them life skills that will help them, whether they want a career in the performing arts or the confidence to thrive in a real world. All the world's a stage after all. If you have seen any of their productions, the latest being World of Colour last month, you will know the company not only caters for and encourages every single student, whatever their age, but that the talent they develop on the stage is phenomenal. Theatre Train's first session is on Saturday the 7th of January, and you can book a taster session for your young, aspiring thespian via their website at www.theatretrain.co.uk/Isle of Wight. Also open for a new season is First Act. And having seen their amazing shows at Shanklin Theatre, I can personally vouch for the dedication of the tutors and their ability to enable each member of the cast to shine on stage. First Act runs theatrical workshops at Sandown Rugby Club for adults with additional needs and produce regular shows. Their first session of 2023 will be on the 23rd of January. So if you are interested in getting involved or would like more information, please contact Lottie on 0781 468 3502 or email firstact2011@gmail.com. The Apollo Players are well into rehearsals for their next show of their 50th season. Private Peaceful. Based on the book by Michael Morpurgo, the play tells us of the life of Private Tomo Peaceful, a young First World War soldier awaiting the firing squad at dawn. During the night, he looks back at his short but joyful past, growing up in rural Devon. His exciting first days at school, the accident in the forest that killed his father, his adventures with Molly, the love of his life, and the battles and injustices of war that brought him to the front line. Private Peaceful runs from Friday, February the 3rd to Saturday, February the 11th, not Sunday or Monday. Tickets can be obtained from the Apollo Theatre on www.apollo-theatre.org.uk/private-peaceful or by calling 01983 210010.
This article is from Isle of Wight Radio and is read by Howard, and it's about Yarmouth Town Council and council tax precept. An Isle of Wight Town Council has agreed to freeze its council tax precept for the second year running. Last night, that's Tuesday, Yarmouth Town Council decided its 2023 precept levels would remain the same as 2022's, despite raising costs. In 2021-22, Yarmouth's average B and D council payer paid £128.35 a year, fifth highest on average behind Ventnor, Sandown, Ryde and East Cowes. This was on top of council tax payments to the Isle of Wight Council, police and fire authorities. The final precept figure will be determined later in the year. Yarmouth Town Council has been one of the first town and parish community councils on the island to set its budget. Others will make their decisions in the next couple of months. The precept last rose for Yarmouth residents in 2021. The Isle of Wight Council has already warned islanders they're likely to face a 5% increase in the main part of the monthly charge as financial pressures continue to rise. Until January 20th, a survey open for residents to have their say on how they think the Isle of Wight Council should spend its money. Find it here, www.iow.gov.uk/council/other services/financial management/budget consultation.
Book sales raised hundreds of pounds for Isle of Wight breast care and chemotherapy units. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. An Isle of Wight journalist has handed over 2 cheques for hundreds of pounds to St Mary's Hospital from the sales of his new book. Peter White has penned memoirs of interviews he's conducted with famous faces in his book, I'm Glad I Did. Peter has interviewed footballers, film stars, actors, comedians, pop icons and others since moving to the island in 1999, having previously lived and worked in Birmingham, where he was a sports reporter for several national newspapers. He covered top-flight football for 39 seasons in the Midlands with Aston Villa, Birmingham City, Wolves, WBA and Coventry City, and then on the south coast with Bournemouth, Southampton and Portsmouth. On the island, Peter was the editor for lifestyle magazines The Beacon and Island Life. His book covers a wide range of stories and tales, though with personalities including Chris Kamara, Harry Redknapp, Brian Little, Linford Christie, Celia Imrie and Princess Anne. So far, the not-for-profit venture has helped raise more than £500 for the 2 vital hospital departments through sales and donations. Peter said, I went along to meet the breast care and chemotherapy nurses at the local hospital to hand over money you have raised by buying my book or making a donation. They asked me to thank every one of you who has already helped them. Natasha, who is head of the chemotherapy unit, said the money would be used to buy wigs for ladies who lose their hair during treatment. Heather, from the Applegate Breast Care Unit, said the money would buy specially adapted bras for ladies who've had a mastectomy. The units at St Mary's are close to Peter's heart, as he explained. My wife Trish died in 2011, aged just 53, following a long battle with the disease, and I have never forgotten the kindness and compassion shown by the nurses and staff in the chemotherapy unit and in the Breast Care Nurses Trust.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. New Year boost for 2 island charities thanks to foundation donation. 2 more good causes have between them received nearly £13,000 from the Isle of Wight Foundation to support building projects that help their work to tackle social exclusion on the island. The awards of £8,500 to Ability Dogs for Young People and £4,435 to Ride Sea Cadets are the last of 2022's grants to be issued by the Isle of Wight Foundation, the charitable body set up by the partners in Island Roads, Ringway Island Roads, Island Road Services, Meridium and Vinci Concessions. Each year, the Foundation issues grants of between £3,000 and £16,000 to local organisations working to tackle social exclusion. A total of over £92,000 has been issued to 9 groups over the past year, bringing the total awarded by the Foundation since 2014 to well over £700,000. The £8,500 for Ability Dogs for Young People will help the charity create a new fully accessible kitchen area that can be used both to help trainers prepare dog food and by service users to practice feeding their ability dogs. The grant will also allow the charity to purchase and install blinds to help regulate the temperature of their training centre. Carol Court, founder and CEO of Ability Dogs for Young People, said, "There are over 700 disabled people under 30 years on the island, and many could benefit from the assistance of an ability dog. There are currently 50 working ability dogs on the island and a waiting list of over 70 disabled young people and children aged from 2 upwards. We want to assist as many people as possible, and these improvements to our training centre will help us to achieve this aim. We're really grateful to the Foundation for their ongoing support." The grant to Ride Sea Cadets will enable the volunteer group to greatly improve the accessibility and quality of the bathrooms, as well as create some much needed storage at their headquarters. Lyndon Softly, commanding officer, said, "At Ride Sea Cadets, the overall aim is to give young people an experience that will help them grow into the person they want to be in a safe and friendly environment. Through various activities and adventures, young people learn teamwork, respect, loyalty, self-confidence, commitment, self-discipline, honesty, and how to be the best version of themselves. For us to help them on that journey, we need premises that are suitable and accessible, and the male and female toilet facilities are very much in need of an upgrade, so this grant is extremely welcome." Isle of Wight Foundation Chair Rob Gillespie said, "These improvements to the buildings will help these two fantastic organisations improve the services they currently offer and also reach out to new people. It has been great to support so many varied good causes this year. Between them, they do fantastic work towards tackling social exclusion on the island. We remain committed to tackling isolation, and we will shortly be announcing how groups and organisations working in this area can apply for assistance from grants in 2023.
This is Chris, reading an article from the Island Echo. Limited time £2 single fare now in place across Southern Vectis services. A special limited time fare, which means Southern Vectis passengers can travel anywhere on the island for £2 or less, is now in operation, continuing for the next 3 months. As previously reported by Island Echo, bus users locally can now benefit from a special scheme allowing them to travel on any single journey across the island for £2 or less this winter, in a move designed to help islanders with travel costs for work, education, shopping and medical treatments at a time of pressure from rising costs of living. It means a journey from Ryde to Newport and back again will cost just £4 instead of the usual £7.20, for example. There are no restrictions on the payment method that can be used, but the £2 fare cap does not apply to the Needles Breezer service. It comes as a result of Southern Vectis signing up to the Department for Transport, DFT, scheme, which will be in place from the 1st of January until the 31st of March 2023. Andrew Wickham, Southern Vectis' managing director, has said, "With fuel costs high, it is an extra incentive for local people to ease their cost of living by leaving their cars at home and opting for sustainable transport instead. We're looking forward to welcoming many new customers on board over the coming months."
This article is read by Howard and is from the Isle of Wight radio and is to do with an Isle of Wight landmark which is set for upgrading. Plans have been submitted to upgrade the Grade 2 red and white striped lighthouse at the Needles, bringing it into the 20th century. Trinity House, the official lighthouse authority in England, wants to alter parts of the tower internally as well as fit a new door. The authority says it's part of a modernisation project which will update navigation aids and electrical and mechanical systems to the latest standards and remove obsolete equipment. The 33-metre high lighthouse dates back to 1859. It was commissioned by Trinity House and cost £20,000. The original item lens was replaced in 1948 after it was damaged by machine guns of a German aircraft during the Second World War. A helipad was built on top of the lighthouse in 1987, 7 years before it became automated. The keepers left on December 8, 1994, and the lighthouse is now monitored and controlled from Harwich in Essex. The tower is only visited now by technicians to carry out work, and with no one present to secure the door during storms, the barrier sometimes fails, allowing water ingress and causing damage. With visits to the lighthouse sometimes months apart, the problems can go unnoticed for a long time. Trinity House is now looking to install a stainless steel watertight door that cannot be pushed open by the force of the sea. It's also seeking approval to infill a window aperture in the engine room, making it compliant with fire regulations, replace the fuel tanks and create a door into the fuel room as it's currently accessed by a wooden hatch, replace the hazard warning system emitters on the gallery, remove the redundant air receiver tanks which used to operate the foghorn in the lower lantern room. It says having such bulky redundant equipment in such a prime functional area is undesirable, and also because the receivers are sealed with asbestos gaskets. The space is now required to accommodate additional batteries, as the current battery array doesn't have enough power for the light and hazard warning system should other power sources fail. Other work is also planned as part of the modernisation scheme, but that doesn't require listed building consent. You can view the plans 22/02252/LBC on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until January 27th.
Islanders urged to get flu jab as virus numbers soar. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. Hundreds of patients with flu are being cared for in local hospitals as cases of the virus rise across the Isle of Wight. The numbers of patients with flu being cared for in intensive care units is increasing locally, as it is in other parts of the country. It comes amid significant ongoing pressure across all local health services. Health and care teams are doing all they can and continue to prioritise patients according to clinical need. As well as rising flu rates, wide-ranging pressures impacting on local services include large numbers of people contacting NHS 111, high numbers of attendances at emergency departments, and soaring appointment requests to GP practices. Dr. Tim Cooper, GP partner and Deputy Chief Medical Officer for Primary and Local Health Care at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, said, "More people locally are needing hospital care due to flu, and we strongly encourage anyone eligible for the vaccine who has not yet taken up the offer to do so as soon as possible to help protect themselves and those around them. Nobody should put off seeking urgent or emergency care, but please contact the most appropriate service for your need to ensure you can get the right care in as timely a way as possible." Thank you to everyone for their understanding as we work together to tackle this challenging situation.
This article is from the Isle of Wight Radio and is read by Howard and is to do with an industrial park at Kingston Wharf. After standing empty for years, a former aggregate wharf in East Cowes has been given the go-ahead to regenerate into a modern marine industrial park. Kingston Wharf in East Cowes, owned by Cowes Harbour Commission (CHC) since 2012, will now become a boat storage facility with washdown capacity after the Isle of Wight Council approved plans last month. Other plans to further regenerate the site, including a large 100-ton boat crane, 11 workshops and mooring pontoons, were also approved, but require further permission for the finer details. The revitalisation plans were first revealed by CHC at the end of 2020 and branded a strategic commitment and investment. In the past few years, major tenants, Isle of Wight Aggregates and Isle of Wight Fuels, have both left the site. The site was marketed as an aggregate wharf, but no operator was secured. The council say the plans would bring the site back into active use without blocking the potential to turn it back into a wharf at a later date. Former Cowes Harbour Master Stuart McIntosh previously said the plans would develop it into a modern marine industrial park and believed it was the right time to make the commitment for the whole of the River Medina. While the plans were approved, concerns were raised by the local authority's environmental health officer about any potential contamination of the site due to its former uses, which included engineering, gasworks, and fuel distribution, with asbestos presence mentioned. Conditions have been added to the permission, ensuring any contamination risks would be robustly assessed and the site would be safe and suitable for its intended use.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Ryde Heritage Action Zone throws light on the town's quirkiest art gallery. Ryde Heritage Action Zone has thrown some light on the town's quirkiest gallery as part of the ongoing project to revitalise the High Street. Funding from Ryde Heritage Action Zone has paid for the lighting in the town's smallest but most perfectly formed gallery space. Box is Ryde's classic kiosk number 6 red phone box on Lynn Street, reimagined as a tiny but mighty art gallery that now inhabits the space. Ryde Town Council purchased the phone box for £1 and then turned it over to creative locals, photographer Zoe Barker and writer Anne-Marie Bowler. They were determined to give it a new and lasting life. Decommissioned but ripe with potential, the box now hosts compelling visual work by island artists and community groups, and now thanks to funding from Ryde Heritage Action Zone worth £2,500, the former phone box is now lit up at night so residents and visitors can enjoy the spectacle. Zoe explained, Box is a positive public beacon that repurposes, reinvents and renews an unused public utility, reclaiming it for the enjoyment of residents and artists alike. Kiosk number 6, K6 phone boxes, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, were introduced in 1935 in celebration of King George V's Silver Jubilee. The iconic design informs its latest reincarnation as an art gallery, its shape, silhouette, colour and lettering praised and preserved. The K6 telephone kiosk is one of Britain's most recognisable pieces of industrial design. Around 60,000 were installed between 1936 and 1968, so it's a familiar sight across the country. There are 3,200 K6 telephone kiosks on the National Heritage List for England, thanks to their special architectural design interest, including the Lynn Street phone box, which is listed at Grade 2. Martin Gibson, Newport High Street Heritage Action Zone project manager, said the Heritage Action Zone was delighted to be able to support the creative reimagining of the phone box. Ryde is such a creative place and is pleasing to be able to support a project like this that is sure to bring a smile to the faces of those who visit the gallery. It's important for iconic structures such as phone boxes to be preserved and given a second lease of life, while also giving local artists a quirky place to exhibit their work.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Jerry
and Tressa.
It is with sadness we report the death of Noreen Taylor, who was CEO in the 1960s to 1980s. She died peacefully at home on January the 1st, aged 97. Noreen was responsible for setting up the Talking News service on a fortnightly basis in the early days and starting the Talking Book Library, amongst other activities.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's society news of the 6th of January. Swimming session is on Monday between 1:15 and 2:15 p.m. at Medina Swimming Pool. Transport is available if required. The cost is £5 for swimming and £2.50 for transport.
And yoga will resume on the 7th of February at Millbrook House starting at 2 p.m. The cost is £3, which includes refreshments.
Coffee and chat will be on Wednesday between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. here at Millbrook House. Please come along and chat with members, friends and staff.
And this month we have our lunch club at the college on Tuesday the 17th of January. The meal is 3 courses at a cost of £8. Numbers are limited, so please call the office to book a space. Transport is available on request.
If you are attending any activity at Millbrook House, please only attend if you are well. This is to protect other members, volunteers and staff, especially this time of year when there are so many viruses around, along with COVID still.
And looking ahead, we have lots of dates for your diaries, which will be published in our next newsletter, which is due out at the end of the month. 2023 already looks very exciting and very busy.
If you require more details on any of the above, please do not hesitate to call the office. And here are some news items. Crumbling Ventnor wall threat to homes. A cliff wall in perilous condition could be removed brick by brick to stop it damaging properties on Ventnor Esplanade. The wall sits above properties on the Esplanade behind the property Crow's Nest on Hamborough Road. However, no one knows who owns the wall, despite a public notice being published asking for owners to come forward. This confusion is said to have led to the lack of maintenance and subsequent deterioration. A letter to the applicants from Smart Surveyors submitted as part of the planning documentation says greenery causes severe damage to the stone, but ultimately helps keep it standing. Overall, the wall is in extremely poor condition and unstable, leading to the recommendation of the surveyors that it should be demolished. The application is being submitted by Cowes-based developers Rotorpoint, who own beachlands below the wall on the Esplanade. The company has permission to demolish the building and replace it with 4 townhouses, and comments can be submitted until January the 18th.
And the next item is from the court and is entitled Who Killed Scott? Questions remain after Ryde man has been cleared of murder. An Island man has been acquitted of the murder of Scott Cooper after a second trial. Piers Brazier of George Street, Ryde, had been accused of murdering 33-year-old Scott Edward Cooper in a property on George Street. After a 3-week-long trial, yesterday, Thursday, members of the jury reached a unanimous verdict of not guilty. Mr. Brazier appeared visibly surprised at the verdict. This was the second time he had stood trial over the death of Mr. Cooper. On January the 4th, the victim's body was found in Mr. Brazier's flat, and on January the 7th, police named the deceased and informed his next of kin. A post-mortem revealed Mr. Cooper had suffered more than 20 injuries, ranging from stab wounds to grazes. 3 were stab wounds to his neck, among them the principal injury, which would have proved rapidly fatal. Police had attended Mr. Brazier's address twice, the first time around 2:50 a.m, acting on the information that there had been a domestic complaint. Not looking for a body at this stage, officers did not look behind the closed shower curtain. Following further calls to the police, officers attended the address a second time at approximately 12:48 p.m. They soon discovered the body of Mr. Cooper upside down in the shower cubicle. The circumstances surrounding the police response to the incident were subsequently referred to an independent watchdog. Closing the defence case, Ignatius Hughes said many of the witnesses didn't tell the truth or were unwilling to, including another male who he said murdered Mr. Cooper in a characteristic outburst of explosive violence. Mr. Hughes said there were of course bit players in this tale, but it was a 2-horse race between Mr. Brazier and this other man, and the latter won hands down on motive and character. The court heard there was an 89-second window in which the other man could have murdered Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hughes said the jury didn't need an expert to tell them a frenzied attack could take less than a second per stab. And the logic told them that this other man had killed Mr. Cooper, not Mr. Brazier. He described Mr. Brazier as a common, broken-down drug addict who barely ate or slept, not a vicious killer.
Poor marks for floaty in survey. A quarter of regular users of the floating bridge have rated the council-run service as poor. A further 1 in 5 passengers thinks the Medina River link between Cowes and East Cowes is below average. A survey was sent to Chain Ferry Saver card holders, those that are most likely to use it regularly and get a discounted ticket price, between July and September. Among feedback received were comments about how the service could be improved, including operating to a fixed timetable, a new app or text service, email updates and a faster turnaround. The Isle of Wight Council says it has developed an action plan including reviewing operating hours, loading and unloading procedures and staff training. Out of more than 5,100 passengers with a saver card, 1,188 responded. Most told the Isle of Wight Council that the ticket prices are about right. For a single foot passenger journey, 27% of passengers said the £1 fee, 50p for saver cards, is too much, but 71% felt it is correct. Although most cyclists felt the fare was about right, 10% said they would pay more, and 34% of car drivers said the £2.40 single, £1.80 with a saver card, was too much, while most, 62%, felt it was about right. While just under half of all users wanted to see an improvement, 24% said the service was above average or good. 94% thought staff were average, above average or good.
And the next item is where we meet the islanders among those recognised in New Year's Honours by Zach Saunders at the County Press. 3 islanders and 3 other people with links to the Isle of Wight were were recognised in the New Year's Honours. Newport's Peter Jardine, a volunteer at the Isle of Wight Steam Railway, was appointed MBE. Steve Blackhouse, General Manager at Haven Street, said Pete's contribution is truly immense. He has spearheaded the restoration of our Victorian carriages. The award is apt recognition of his skill, hard work and dedication over many years. Former Mayor and Councillor businessman John Gilby from Shanklin received the British Empire Medal for his services to the community. He told the County Press he was speechless and deeply honoured. He said, "I had no idea until the email came through. I thought it was a prank email, so I had to phone up to verify. It's one of those things where you don't think it will ever happen to you. I am totally blown away, totally shocked, and it still hasn't sunk in." From Ventnor, Coast Guard rescuer Martin Rayner was recognised for his services to maritime safety and received a British Empire Medal. He has been volunteering for the role for 4 decades and is due to retire soon. Martin said, "I'm really honoured. My father was in service before me, so between us we have been part of the Coast Guard family for around 70 years. I've had a fantastic time in the service, feeling I've given something back to the community. I certainly wouldn't have done it if I didn't enjoy it. My family have supported me throughout and I couldn't have done it without them." And Shanklin Theatre patron and nationally known broadcaster, journalist and author John Suchet was appointed an OBE for his services to journalism and charity. Also recognised was former Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary Inspector Kevin Shipp, who received a King's Police Medal. He said, "I had absolutely no idea I was being nominated for this honour. So to find out about this after my retirement was very humbling. It's a tremendous honour." Charity benefactor John Calcutt, who has a house on the island, was also appointed.
Revealed how many parking tickets have been issued. More than 21,000 parking tickets were issued on the island in 12 months between 2021 and 2022. Figures released by the Isle of Wight Council in its annual parking report show 1 in 4 penalty charge notices, PCNs, issued between the 1st of April 21 and March the 31st 2022 was for parking in a car park without paying. It was the most frequent parking restriction infringement, with a total of 5,710 fines issued. Nearly 2,298 people were ticketed for the same offence on street. During the 12 months, a total of 21,595 PCNs were issued by the Council's civil enforcement officers, and more than 3,970 were given out for parking in a restricted street during the prescribed hours, and the third highest reason was parking for longer than permitted in on-street spaces, with 3,559 tickets issued. Other tickets were issued for parking in an electric vehicle charging space without charging their car. And there was 3 of those. Parked with the engine running where it was prohibited, and parking in a car park where it was closed. In its report, the council said, in a perfect world, it would not have to issue PCNs, but this would only happen if drivers complied with parking and traffic regulations, road signs and time limits. It says the benefits of complying allow for improved road safety, better vehicle movements and clearer access for pedestrians and individuals.
And the next item in the county press is about a pub closing ahead of major refurbishment. So, an island pub has been closed and will undergo major refurbishment before a planned reopening in the spring, with the hopes of the current team can reach an agreement with the new employers. The Griffin on God's Hill High Street closed its doors on Monday following the expiry of the current lease. Under the new stewardship of the Stone Gate Group, the pub will be further developed and will become one of its managed house, under the Stone House banner. Set within a Grade 2 listed building, the Griffin will remain closed while redevelopment takes place, in the hope to reopen its doors in the spring after major transformation. Planning permission submitted to the Isle of Wight Council on December the 14th proposes internal changes and redecoration works, including a pergola shelter, garden works and outside repainting. The proposal also includes a non-illuminated fascia sign, 1 illuminated post sign, 2 low-level illuminated post signs and wall lanterns. The former landlord, who leaves the pub following the lease expiry, said, "In 7 years it's been my pleasure to guide the ship. I have worked with some fantastic teams and have met some wonderful customers who I'm sure will help support the pub when it reopens."
Yarmouth Ferry will improve, says Whitelink. An Isle of Wight ferry boss has promised one of its Solent crossings will be better in future, as he explained why fewer ships' captains had contributed to what he had admitted had been poor service. There is also hope the Yarmouth-Lymington Cross-Solent route will return to pre-COVID levels this summer. In November, Yarmouth Town Council, YTC, complained that problems with the Lymington to West Wight crossing had had a negative impact on the town. During the autumn, the service was disrupted by cancelled crossings and gaps in the timetables due to a lack of crucial staff. On Tuesday, Whitelink's Chief Executive Keith Greenfield met with YTC and admitted performance had been poor between August and November. He said that the Yarmouth to Lymington route had operated at a 95% reliability rate, which was far too many cancellations compared to the standard it sets itself of at least 99.5%. Mr Greenfield apologised but said crews had bust a gut to minimise the number of cancellations. An unprecedented 3 of 7 ships' captains also left the company, which the ferry boss said he had never seen before during his time at Whitelink. They have to be specially trained for each route and hold the highest possible qualifications, so it took up to 8 weeks to replace them. In future, more captains will be trained to cover both vehicle crossing routes. The single issue meant that we failed to provide a service you all expect and deserve, said Mr Greenfield. I'm glad to say we are back to where we should be, and I cannot see any reason that should change. The meeting heard councillors claim it felt like Whitelink had run down its service, decreasing sailings and bringing forward the last sailing of the day. They said it felt like the company was driving passengers away. Mr Greenfield refuted the claims, saying he wants the biggest and best possible service for Yarmouth. He said it's a commercial service. The only income we have is ticket revenue, and we have to gauge the size of the service to the demand that we think is there.
And the next item from the county press is entitled "Human Windbreak Helps." A human windbreak helped to protect a casualty on Gurnard Beach on New Year's Day. Just 9 hours into 2023 saw Cowes RNLI lifeboat launched to help a wingfoiler who was out at sea and suspected he had broken his ankle. COW's RNLI's operations manager, acting as the duty launch authority this week, happened to be at the beach with his dog when he heard the shouts for help. Another foiler entered the water to help, along with a former lifeboat crew member who was already kitted up in a cold water wetsuit. They got the casualty and his rig ashore. The operations manager had meanwhile called 999 for an ambulance, lifeboat and Coast Guard rescue team. Despite the mild morning, the rescue effort was on an exposed beach, and concerns for the effect of cold water were uppermost in everyone's mind. Although the casualty was experienced foiler, properly dressed for the conditions, he needed extra warmth, and a nearby group of sea dippers quickly stepped in to help cover him in dry robes, blankets and a warm hat. Bembridge Coast Rescue Team was soon on the scene and suggested the swimmers form a windbreak to help keep the casualty warm. The casualty was taken to hospital.
Time to retire, but we will miss our customers. A family-run hotel has closed and its owners are starting their well-deserved retirement. The Aqua in Shanklin shut its doors just before Christmas. James and Annette Blanchett ran the seafront property for 43 years, and the friends they met and made along the way will be what they miss the most. Meeting and greeting people was the best bit, said Annette, and all the people we have made good friends with and those that have worked with us. It started as a chance encounter while the couple were on holiday in Romania, and where they bumped into some intrepid first-time hoteliers. We came to visit them, and we were the first names in the Aqua's visitor book, Annette explained. I remember thinking, we'd never do this. The early 1980s found them in partnership, and not long after that, they brought their partners out and embarked on a family adventure that lasted a lifetime. When they took sole charge, Annette was 4 months away from giving birth to their first child, and the couple's son arrived 2 years later. Annette said they had their tea there after school, and they learned a lot without knowing it, like having a good work ethic. Originally, the Aqua had 24 rooms, boasting 2 ensuite and 2 communal bathrooms per floor, serving more than 50 guests at peak season. There were a lot of knocking on doors. Over the years, James and Annette extended and improved. When they finally handed over the keys, all the rooms were ensuite, many boasting magnificent views of the English Channel. If we were 30 years younger, we would have added another floor, 10 more rooms and a lift, laughed Annette. Retirement hasn't really hit us yet. At this time of the year, we wouldn't usually be open. And it won't be until when I would usually start getting staff in February. During COVID, we were at home. We couldn't open and we couldn't go anywhere. Now James and Annette are planning a sensible, healthy and quiet future. Tap dancing, DIY, gardening and anything we want are all on the agenda. They also aim to visit son Chris, a senior weather presenter for BBC Scotland, and daughter Natalie, who is a trainer and cabin crew with British Airways. The building is not expected to reopen as a hotel.
And the next item from the County Press is about landslides along the coastal pathway. Land has fallen along the Isle of Wight coastal path between Luckham and Bonchurch, forcing its closure. Diversions were being put in place on Tuesday, and the County Hall said it would be monitoring the situation. The problem was spotted on Monday, January the 2nd, by regular users of the path who had turned to mark the start of 2023. Dramatic photos taken this week by Islander Graham Gardner clearly showed the new drop of more than a foot. A garage was made inaccessible and large cracks were evident on the road surface following weeks of heavy rain. An Isle of Wight Council spokesman said the coastal path affected by the landslip has been closed and no attempt should be made to look at the damage or walk it. The council will be erecting temporary coastal path diversion signage and the situation will be monitored. Reopening opportunities will be considered once the current damage has settled. We would like to remind people that during the winter and stormier weather, the cliffs around the island's coast are susceptible to cliff falls caused by erosion from the sea, wind and rain. Everyone should be mindful of the risk of rockfalls and landslips.
Wharf to be revived as a marine hub. After standing empty for years, a former aggregate wharf in East Cowes has been given the go-ahead to regenerate into a modern marine industrial park. Kingston Wharf in East Cowes, owned by Cowes Harbour Commission, CHC, since 2012, will now become a boat storage facility with washdown capacity after the Isle of Wight approved plans last month. Other plans to further regenerate the site, including a large 100-ton boat crane, 11 workshops and mooring pontoons, were also approved, but require further permission for the finer details. The revitalisation plans were first revealed by CHC at the end of 2020 and branded a strategic commitment and investment. In the past few years, major tenants IW Aggregates and IW Fuels have both left the site, and the site was marketed as an aggregate wharf, but no operator was secured. The council say the plans would bring the site back into active use without blocking the potential to turn it back into a wharf at a later date. Former Cowes Harbour Master Stuart McIntosh previously said the plans would develop it into a modern marine industrial park and believed it was the right time to make the commitment for the whole of the River Medina. While the plans were approved, concerns were raised by the local authority's environmental health officer about any potential contamination of the site due to its former uses, which included engineering, gasworks and fuel distribution, with asbestos present mentioned. Conditions have been added to the permission ensuring any contamination risks would be robustly assessed and the site would be safe and suitable for its intended use.
And the next item is entitled Hundreds of Island Homes Sitting Empty by Liam Chorley. Amid a housing crisis, hundreds of Isle of Wight homes have been sitting empty for more than 6 months, new figures show. Long-term empties across the country have risen to the highest level in a decade outside the COVID pandemic. As of October, data from the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Community show that at least 624 homes liable for council tax on the Isle of Wight have been unoccupied for at least 6 months. It means that the number of homes gathering dust at least half a year has increased by 46% from the 426 in 2021. The properties deemed long-term empty were among a total of 1,559 vacant homes counted on the Isle of Wight in October. Owners of properties which have lain empty for 2 years or more can be charged an extra 100% council tax on top of their bill, rising to as much as 300% if the home has been emptied for a decade or longer. Separate figures show that 222 Isle of Wight households were in temporary accommodation at the end of June. Between April and June, 202 Isle of Wight households were entitled to support after becoming homeless or being put at risk of homelessness.
New owner takes on ice cream cabin. After 2 decades, the owner of Cowes Cabin on the Green, formerly Davis Jones Locker, have decided to hang up their cones. Found on Prince's Green, the family-run business offers a wide range of ice creams, specialising in the New Forest brand and others, as well as hot and cold drinks and takeaway snacks. Posting on Facebook with mixed emotions, the former owners said the takeover had created no dramas and the new owner, Diana, had been working with them in preparation for the handover. There will not be many changes at the cabin, as Diana said. If it ain't broke. A spokesman for the previous owners said, "Thank you so much for your support, custom and above all friendship. It's been hard work, but you guys made it a pleasure. We will be about for a while helping Diana find her feet, so hope to see you on the Green. We wish you all the best for the future, stay healthy and remember, no calories on the beach."
And the next item from the County Press is where care home staff make it special. So staff at Cowes Care Home help to create great memories for residents by making this Christmas extra special. Residents at Old Charlton House residential care home missed out on seeing relatives and friends over the past couple of years due to the COVID pandemic. Claire Williams, who has recently taken over as manager, and the home's new activities coordinator, Cheyenne Wyatt, worked hard to make this Christmas one they would not forget. The Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary visited Old Charlton House Garden from their Wroxall stables, and the residents enjoyed meeting and stroking the animals. A Christmassy atmosphere was created in the home by a snow machine, and Father Christmas visited to deliver presents. A spokesperson said, Old Charlton House wishes all residents, their families, friends, and all the staff a very Merry Christmas.
Blueprint to revive Victoria Barracks. Regeneration plans have been unveiled for the neglected Victoria Barracks on East Cowes Esplanade as part of the £5.8 million levelling up of the area. In recent years, the building has been vacant, and according to agents on behalf of the Isle of Wight Council, ERMC, it is neglected, in a poor state of repair and unsuitable for occupation. The Isle of Wight Council has now submitted plans to its planning department seeking permission to restore and extend the Victoria Barracks opposite Venture Quays. The works would give the building a new lease of life, ready for potential new tenants UKSA to use as another base across the river from its Arctic Road Cowes headquarters. Under the plans, the barracks would house a common room, meeting area, sleeping accommodation, bathrooms, wash-up area, laundry, storeroom, a canteen and a kitchen. A new single-storey extension would be tacked onto one end of the building to facilitate the proposed new use, but tucked away so it would only be able to be seen by people on site. ERMC say the proposals allow the authority to improve a building of local island importance, improve learning and training facilities, and keep up with the demand for maritime learning. The barracks were built in 1872 to accommodate guards for Queen Victoria. It remained owned by the military until 1960, when it was sold to the British Hovercraft Corporation, but it is now owned by the Isle of Wight Council, which was successful in securing funding for the East Cowes waterside development. Internally, the building has been altered through the years, so few original features remain. New ceilings and floors will be fitted, and the walls will be stabilised with internal steel bracing. The walls and railings around the barracks will be kept and restored, as the Victorian railings are some of the last in the town. The majority of the others were used for ammunition during the Second World War. The barracks were last used 2 years ago as a set on the BritBox show The Beast Must Die.
And the next item from the County Press is entitled Thousands for Those in Need. A fund to support those in poverty in Ventnor has meant thousands of pounds has been given to the local community groups. The committee set up by Ventnor Town Council to administer the Community Support Fund held its first meeting recently to decide where the money was most needed. The committee, chaired by Councillor Brian Lucas, heard that the fund stood at £26,450. The fund was started after residents watched a film by David George of Utility Films about poverty in the town. One resident donated £20,000 and other donations have also been forthcoming. Ventnor Wellbeing Cafe was given £3,500 to enable additional sessions and to provide lunch for its members throughout New Year. The group has grown to nearly 90 members. Ventnor Community Food Bank was given £5,000. It is experiencing high levels of demand. Ventnor Community Pantry was given £5,000. It's providing food for more than 100 families and individuals each week.
5G phone mast plan revealed. 5G could be rolled out to another island town. Approval is being sought by Reading-based CK Hutchinson Networks to install a 20-metre high 5G mast in East Cowes. The equipment will be installed on York Avenue near Kynance Nursing Home and the Jubilee Recreation Ground, and will be used by phone provider 3. Cable boxes would also be installed on the footpath. 5G has been introduced across the country and promises faster download speeds and greater network capacity. One East Cowes Town Council member said if the town wanted 5G, a mast was needed, as in other areas. Other councillors said it was unsightly, in an unpopular location, overlooking a play park and school and above the treetops. It was questioned why the mast would not be added to the existing telecommunications equipment and not create new hideous overbearing structures. One objection has so far been submitted, saying it would have a detrimental impact on footway users. It would create an effect and it would be problematical for disabled people. Comments can be submitted until January the 18th.
And the next item from the County Press, a man made misogynistic remarks to women. A Ryde man who made misogynistic remarks to women, then dug his nails into a police officer's hands during Cowes Week, learnt his fate when he appeared before magistrates. Carl Stay Southcott of Star Street, Ryde, admitted assaulting a police officer by beating and a public order offence in Cowes on August the 4th at an earlier hearing. On that occasion, magistrates ordered a report on him to consider his sentence. Police were called by Cowes Week security following reports of a disturbance caused by Stay Southcott, in which he had made misogynistic comments towards two women, followed by vile insults, said Liz Miller, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Stay Southcott, with no previous convictions, lost his job as a hospital porter with the NHS as a result of this incident, said his solicitor Henry Farley, who said that he had expressed shame and remorse. He got a year's probation, 80 hours unpaid work, £114 surcharge and £85 costs.
Castle plans being revised. Owners of the dilapidated Norris Castle in East Cowes are revising plans following concerns from the community. The move comes after they shared frustrations about a lack of engagement from East Cowes Town Council, ECTC, which they say is ongoing. Plans have been in the making for years to turn the Grade 1 listed building on the outskirts of the town into a luxury hotel and resort. Designs from Global Technical Solutions, GTS, and the Norris Castle Estate Group were officially submitted to the Isle of Wight Council last year, but hit some snags when issues were raised. The application is now being held up until revised highway plans for East Cowes Esplanade are submitted following concerns from Island Roads. ECTC had concerns including inadequate junction visibility, width and footway width. GTS has come up with two different schemes, one of which would include a Copenhagen crossing and the other which would bend the access road but have to use land leased from the IW Council to ECTC. A Copenhagen crossing gives priority to pedestrians at side roads, and the option to bend the access road was the preferred one. Clint Wellington of GTS said, and they were asking the town council to clarify which it would support. In exchange for the land, GTS said it was offering mutual benefits, including a legally binding covenant to prevent further development without the town council's approval, an agreement stipulating delivery routes and timings during construction, pay in part for the repair of the esplanade and removal of landslip debris, provide technical and structural engineers to help find a solution to the esplanade landslip issues, and refurbish 4 acres of woodland to the town council's design and specification. However, Mr Wellington said no preferred option was indicated by ECTC, so it is now going with the option of a Copenhagen crossing so the planning issues can be resolved urgently. ECTC said it informed Mr Wellington it had not changed its views and would await the amended application before commenting further.
Now we move on to County Press Memories, and the first is On the Trail of the Lost Buildings and Businesses of Old Newport by David White. When you look around Newport, you'll find evidence of lost buildings and long-gone commercial buildings. Some have been demolished, some abandoned, and others have undergone changes of use. Many Newport pubs have disappeared, two noticeable ones being the Freemasons Tavern, so named on account of its proximity to the Freemasons building in Lugley Street, and the Sun Inn. The Bugle Tap halfway down Lugley Street used to be the tap bar to the main Bugle Hotel on the High Street, and is another lost pub which has undergone change. Staying on the same street, the old Newport Grammar School, built around 1614, had a venerable history. King Charles I is said to have stayed there, and it was where the failed Treaty of Newport was signed. In the 1950s, it changed its name to King James I Grammar School, sporting its distinctive blazer colours of black and white piping. It operated as a school right through and up until 1969. Today, this proud historic building, one of the oldest in Newport, languishes in a sorry-looking state. In Mill Street, a derelict crumbling building can be found. This is the site of an early provincial bank, and on closer examination, remnants of the old provincial bank sign can still be seen. This building has laid dormant for countless years, waiting for what, one might ask. Perhaps it may be a listed building and an unsympathetic developer is waiting for its eventual demise so they might replace it with a modern block of utility-designed flats. Next we move to Quay Street, where you'll find a grand townhouse. It's empty and hasn't been lived in for nearly a century, though it appears to be in reasonable condition. It raises a question of why it's been empty for so long and who were the last people to occupy it. Finally, looking at the rear of Boots on Lugley Street, it's evident by its design that this is part of the same building that was once some kind of entertainment establishment. In fact, many years ago, this used to be the Queen's Hall, one of the town's leading dance halls. When you're inside the shop looking up at the rear of the building, the old balcony that once looked over the dance floor can be seen. Taking a casual stroll around the town, much of Newport old may still be recognised. Many brash new buildings have sprung up, but the quaintness of the old ones still have a presence.
Book details when Queen Victoria broke a 300-year taboo with a royal visit. A new book detailing the history of Carisbrooke Priory has just been produced by the Isle of Wight Catholic History Society. The Priory stands on the hill beside Mountjoy Cemetery to the southwest of Newport and has a unique history. It was built in 1866 by Elizabeth, Countess of Clare. She has a close affiliation to the Dominican order, and she was determined that the Dominicans would be the first monastic order to be established on the island post-Reformation. 3 years later on, January the 27th, 1869, Queen Victoria visited the Priory while staying at Osborne House. This was significant, as she was the first visit of a monarch to a Catholic monastic establishment for over 300 years. Such a historic royal visit certainly raised eyebrows at the time, but it gradually led to improved and cordial relations between Catholics and Anglicans. Until then, there had been a determined effort to stop or hinder Catholics building churches and chapels on the island. The order flourished at Carisbrooke for almost 100 years, and the nuns led a simple life of prayer, meditation and devotion. From the late 1960s, many religious orders began to decline, and Carisbrooke was no exception. Their numbers dwindled until in 1989 there remained just 5 elderly nuns who could no longer maintain the priory. They were pleased, however, that a Christian presence would remain when they eventually moved to another priory. Today, Christian witness continues with the priory now well established as a pastoral and retreat centre. The new book is available from the priory at just £3.
And the next item is from the County Press with personal views. A panel of columnists take it in turns to give their take on life as it's played out on the Isle of Wight. And this article is by Alan Marriott. About 18 months ago, me and my other half started to have conversations about life after work. Mrs. M has been happily settled into life of dog walking, crafting and grandchildren sitting for several years now, and she kept hinting that I should join her. But with 60 not yet upon me at that point, I wasn't quite ready. Since then, several people I know and several celebrities have either died or had life-changing illnesses, leading me to reassess. As I announced in these pages a few weeks back, I've bitten the bullet and put my papers in for early semi-retirement, relinquishing the editorship, but keeping my hand in with a couple of smaller roles within and outside the County Press Towers. If ever there was a timely reminder that you don't know what's around the corner, it was the sad death of my early musical heroes last month, one of my early musical heroes. Terry Hall of the Specials was only 63 when he passed, and his death hit me harder than any celebrity demise I can think of. I got to wondering why that was, and I guess it was the fact that his youth had mirrored my own, and his voice was the soundtrack of a happy young adulthood. So this was the big tick in the box to say I was doing the right thing at the right time. And in my colleagues Laurie Little and Lucy Morgan, I am now leaving the County Press in the best possible hands.
My thoughts now turn to how I'm going to spend my time after the end of March. I have started making mental lists of tasks, challenges, fun stuff, etc. that I will have more time to do. But I know from older mates that some people take to life after work better than others. I'm a sociable fella, I think, with lots of great mates, and whether it will be playing cricket and football while I still can, digging a pond in my garden, wife's first year task for me, and it might take that long, or hopefully helping out one or two island good causes, I shouldn't be worried. You'll never know how you had the time to work, the smugger retirees I know tell me. And yet it's a huge life changes, having been a wage slave for the last 42 years after starting work virtually straight from school. I have had structure and order to my existence. From April the 1st, I will basically be able to get up when I want, walk around the house and walk the hound when I like, although he may have a view on that, and even watch ITV4's seemingly endless repeats of The Sweeney, Mindler and The Professionals, should I so wish. The third age, as people grandly call it, can bring pain, illness, deterioration and other miseries. But the alternative is worse. Or it can be 20 years of doing those things you never got round to. Will I ever write that novel I promised myself? Lose those office pounds that have piled on over the years? To paraphrase Terry Hall in Enjoy Yourself, I'm Alan and I'm going to enjoy myself first. Can Solent oyster market make a comeback? The common oyster, Ostrea edulis, was once harvested in huge numbers from suitable habitats around the UK and provided a cheap staple food for many, including the very poor. Back then, it was not a luxury item to be enjoyed only by the wealthy. Over-harvesting, pollution, disease and loss of habitats caused a drastic decline in numbers, so that by the early 1800s they were limited to a few sites along the south coast that included some around the Isle of Wight. In 1784, large numbers of excellent quality oysters were found at St Helens, but they were quite quickly fished out by fishermen from all around the adjacent south coast. In 1866, the Isle of Wight Oyster Fisheries Company took a 25-year lease on the River Medina, but by 1870 the fishery had failed due to pollution from the town of Newport. The company sued Newport Corporation, but were not successful in their action. The Bewley and Newtown Oyster Fisheries Company was formed in 1880, importing seed oysters from the Tagus in Iberia to be grown on at Newtown. By 1886 it became non-viable and the company folded. There was also another attempt in the 1960s, but again this did not last. In 1905 there were plans to form a fishery at Wootton Creek, where small numbers of oysters existed, but local opposition vetoed it. In the early 1970s, good number of oysters were found out in the open Solent, and a viable fishery quickly developed. In 1972, there were 17 boats manned by 40 fishermen, but by 1978 this had increased to many more either directly or indirectly involved in the fishery. In the 1979-1980 season, landings totalled about 700 tonnes with a value in excess of £1 million. This was inevitably unsustainable and the fishery collapsed, the government eventually banning it completely. The oyster is a strange creature. They all start life as males, but for some reason can change sex many times as they age, caused by changing water temperatures. However, their most useful feature is that they filter feeders of plankton, and detritus that they can putrefy large amounts of polluted water quite quickly. Because of this ability, there is at the present time a sizable and ongoing scheme to seed the Solent with thousands of oysters in an attempt to counter the problem of contaminated sewage. Hopefully it will be successful.
And now we move on to some what's on items. So we have a circus heading to the island. There will be a new name in circuses on the island this spring. Circus Zaire has revealed plans to visit Seaclose Park in Newport between March the 31st and April the 16th. Its website promises a colourful and action-packed hour and half show with high-energy acts from all over the world. It says the 2023 tour is a dazzling combination of circus music and laughter, with heated big top, comfy seats and electric atmosphere from start to finish. Circus Zaire promises to be a truly magical experience for the whole family. Although new to the island, you may already have seen Circus Zaire in action. It has appeared in both the TV show Brassic and horror movie Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
Northern Chords Ensemble to play. The first West Wight Arts Association concert of 2023 will be on Saturday, January the 14th. Piano trio Northern Chords Ensemble will perform in the Memorial Hall, Freshwater, at 7 p.m. The trio consists of Ben Baker, violin, Jonathan Bloxham, cello, and Daniel Lebhart, piano. All three have played for the association before in different capacities, and the group is delighted to welcome them back. They will play two piano trios by Mendelssohn, the Op 49 in D minor and the Passionati Op 66 in C minor. In between, they will play an appropriately wintry set of 5 miniatures for piano. Stop. Realised that was wrong. Minuets. In between, they will play an appropriately wintry set of 5 minuets for piano and violin entitled Highland Scenes by the British composer Matthew Kenner, whose work Pearl was premiered at the Proms this year. Tickets are available from www.westwightarts.co.uk or Tottenham Parish Council on 756 028. Give yourself a musical New Year treat.
And Newport Minster are advertising a new free adult singing group starting on the 18th of January. And it says, join us for an hour of singing for fun. We don't care what you sound like, we just want you to leave with a smile. And it's on every Wednesday between 7 and 8 p.m. at the Parish Centre, Town Lane in Newport. Everyone is welcome. For more information, call 821 961.
Lecture on Napoleon's Truth. The Arts Society Isle of Wight will be presenting the latest lecture of its season this month at Northwood House in Cowes. Hosted by Carol Pettifer, an experienced guide lecturer in and around Paris, the event will use art to explore the characters who shaped 19th century France. For this lecture, Carol has researched individual items housed at Château du Malmaison and uses them to delve behind the scenes to discover hidden truths about Napoleon and Josephine. The Château de Malmaison estate, bought by the couple as their private country retreat, was made into a national museum in 1905, amassing a huge collection of their possessions. By exploring these collections, you can learn how Napoleon was such an excellent self-promoter, and what drove him and his wife, and what makes them one of the most followed couples in history. The lecture will be held on Tuesday, January the 10th at 2 p.m, and there are a limited number of places available. If you'd like to go, call 07968 246 068. That's 07968 246 068.
And the next article by Laurie Little advertises libraries who are about to host chess clubs on the Isle of Wight. New chess clubs have opened up in 2 Isle of Wight libraries, with more venues to follow suit. Sessions are set for Ventnor Library on a Wednesday afternoon and Sandown Library on a Thursday afternoon, supported by the charity Chess in Schools and Communities, abbreviated to CSC, who have supplied all the equipment. Establishing the chess clubs is the first stage of a programme to make chess available to all. The next stage is to supply CSC chess tutors to give lessons. The libraries of Cowes, East Cowes, Freshwater, Ryde and Newport have also agreed in principle to hosting a chess club with free lessons for anyone who wishes to learn. A spokesperson for CSC says, "It's been observed that children who play chess have better school results. It follows that they may be better equipped for future working lives. Should we not all be encouraging and helping our children to play chess? There are very few schools on the island that offer chess clubs. Would those schools that do please let us know?" A Christmas chess competition was won by Philip Kennelly, with Harry Vernon as second and Nick Perkis third. To get library chess clubs up and running, the charity needs volunteers to help supervise. Contact Shanklin Chess Club at btinternet.com. That's Shanklin Chess Club at btinternet.com.
And now for some letters. Shirley Rowe writes about A&E heroes. I have nothing but praise for St Mary's Hospital Emergency Department. I was unwell over Christmas and ended up there. Despite being extremely busy and having to put up with abuse on occasion, all the staff were so kind and patient with everyone.
And Karen Barnard from Brading also talks about top treatment. I have recently been unwell, which necessitated a stay in St Mary's Hospital, and would like to say a big thank you to Dr Fox and the whole team at Ryde Esplanade Surgery, who are giving me such excellent service in these difficult times. Also thank you to Islands Ambulance Service, last but not least the doctors and nurses in A&E and on Apley Ward, who are working in stressful circumstances with the hospital at bursting point. I could not have had better treatment and care.
Martin Jones from Ryde writes about a crackdown on all dodgers. The County Press, 30th of December, led with an article about a pharmacist reportedly claiming more wages from the NHS than he was entitled to. I read the story with interest and wondered whether this was the tip of an enormous iceberg. It occurs to me that there must be others entrusted with booking their own working hours. For some, the feeling of being short-changed one day might lead them to justify to themselves the odd exaggerated claim the next. It certainly raises questions regarding just how much money is similarly lost by cash-strapped NHS. Looking at the bigger picture, the rail industry, another industry in a lot of trouble at the moment, must lose millions due to passengers bunking fares. As a taxi driver of over 30 years before moving to the Isle of Wight, I used to witness many a sprightly youth jumping the barrier at a rail station. And I remember a potentially lucrative 15-mile Saturday night fare being thwarted when a young chap said, "On second thoughts, cabby, drop us at the station," before explaining to his friend, "You don't have to pay after 10 o'clock, there's no guards." I'm not so naive to believe that dishonesty can be eradicated, but I cannot be the only person thinking that these failing industries might not be doing enough to combat it. Is it simply not cost effective to clamp down, or is it just complacency? After all, at the end of the day, it will be the taxpayer who picks up any shortfall. I wonder if there is anyone else out there who shares my utopic dream world where service industries become efficient machines, and other machines prevent monies from being leached from reserves and then have enough in the pot to meet future realistic pay demands.
And the next letter is from somebody who talks about his memories of his time at market. Alan Marriott's article, County Press, 30th of December 2022, and Scenes of Newport Market in Former Times brought back memories of my time with Ways, which was called Ways Riddit & Co., Auctioneers and Estate Agents. They took me on age 22. In 1957, following my redundancy at Saunders Row. My job on market day, Tuesday, was to organise the produce side of the business called Covent Garden in the building opposite in South Street, which is now a greetings card and gift shop. On Monday afternoons and early the next morning, I would catalogue and number the entries until wooden racks and tables were laden with a wide variety of vegetables, fruits, plants, etc., ready for an auctioneer to arrive and do the selling. Next day, I would complete the accounts and a summary of the prices fetched for the County Press market reports. I recall old colleagues such as Ivor Hawkins, Tim Smith, Alan Girling, Keith Rogers, Jimmy Hughes, who was the head porter, and auctioneers Sam Watson, Tommy Glennie, and Mr. Holloway. I remember too our rivals, Pittis employees, Ray Cheverton and George Giddens. On one occasion, I ventured over to the main market side to try my luck, and zero knowledge, at the Guess the Weight of the Pig annual competition. To the amazement of everyone, but mostly to me, I won. Not the pig, but a handy fiver.
Ian Welby from Ventnor has the letter of the week, titled Housing Victory. We've all read with dismay the seemingly ever-growing number of announcements of large-scale, low-density greenfield developments threatening our island countryside. The worst schemes, such as Pennyfeathers and Westacre, have attracted literally hundreds of objections as residents have fought in vain to protect their much-valued green space. Until now, developers have had the whip hand, being able to bypass local views by appeal to mandatory top-down government housing targets. Even if their destructive schemes are rejected by the council, they will likely win on appeal to the planning inspectorate, citing the island's failure to meet its totally unrealistic housing targets. The Isle of Wight CPRE, Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, has highlighted just how ill-suited these targets are to the island's unique market. But recently our MP Bob Seeley won a significant victory, leading the campaign in Westminster to make top-down housing targets advisory and recognise the unique circumstances facing the places such as the island. Bob has helped ensure we deliver the affordable brownfield first housing the island needs. And it's goodbye from Jerry.
And goodbye from Tressa.
The BBC In Touch programme follows. There is no scaffolding news this week.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. The new year is often seen as an opportunity to take stock. You know, what are our resolutions for this year? And more sobering, usually, how did the ones we made for last year actually turn out? But we've decided on In Touch to play this game over a period rather longer than a year, more like a lifetime. We've invited 4 people to join us who have at least one thing in common. They all appeared first on In Touch as children. Oh, and of course, they're all visually impaired. That's a golden rule. The point being, how have plans turned out? If they've changed, why? What went wrong? Or maybe what went right? So, could I ask you all, first of all, just very briefly, to introduce yourselves with a quick description of what you're doing at the moment?
Hi, my name's Will Toms. I'm 38, living just outside London. I am working for an American bank in technology, got a family with 3 kids and a wonderful wife.
Hi, I'm Roshni. I've just turned 40. I live just outside Glasgow. I was a journalist once upon a time, and I'm now a civil servant.
Hi, I'm Paul. I am 37. I live in Wales, and I am a husband to my beautiful wife, Rachel, and father to 3 wonderful children.
Hi, I'm Martin. I live in Rugeley. I'm also 37. I do some server management. I attend a local church and really loving all the technology at the moment.
Wonderful. And the good news, all these chaps have got beautiful wives. They'll be very pleased to hear that. If you heard that original episode in 2003, you also may remember there was another voice in the mix, Anna Cannings. Anna unfortunately couldn't make it this time, but she sends you all warm wishes. So, how you got there will hopefully emerge, but now we've heard you as adults, we thought it would be fun, not necessarily for you, to hear you as children. You'll all recognise yourselves, I guess, but it might be fun for listeners to try to put names to childish voices.
Oh, there's tons of ice inside it. It's like a freezer. It's freezing. It's like the Antarctic in there.
Well, I know you're a bit of a drummer, aren't you?
Yeah.
And there's something over here that might appeal to you. Let's go in that corner over there.
I mean, I have quite a lot of ambitions, but I think my greatest one is I'd like to work in India as an interpreter.
What's this? Another foot.
That's just the rare one.
That is
one.
big.
It is, isn't it?
He's much too interested in
That ain't me. That's
Who's that then? I don't know who that is.
Well,
oh dear.
They were all recorded sometime in the 1990s. But before we start exploring how life has treated you, I've got one more ordeal for you all to go through. We did get you all back in 2003 on the edge of adulthood, and I asked you about your ambitions. Will?
Me, I'd like to be producing hit record.
Okay. Martin?
Radio presenter, I think.
My job? No, something more interesting than that, surely. Paul?
I see myself mixing down music which actually get into the charts.
Right, so you and Will will probably be in competition with each other.
Yeah,
unless you decide to collaborate. You could always collaborate.
Definitely where Greg Dyke is now.
Well, I think we'd quite like that. Yeah, we'd like that. Now, we should explain to younger listeners that Greg Dyke used to be the BBC's Director General.
Less of the younger.
Well, but a year after that, Greg resigned in circumstances we don't need to go into now. But Roshni, you missed your chance. You could have, 2004, you could have nipped in, couldn't you?
Yeah, I feel like I followed his path a bit too closely there because my media career sort of ended abruptly around the same time. So that's a correlation that I could live without, really. So I'll go there.
All right, well, we may have to go there. Let's see. And Will and Paul, you didn't get together for that hit recording.
No, unfortunately, it never happened. We just didn't find the time.
Well, the one thing that emerges from that is that none of you are doing exactly what you hoped you'd be doing, but you may be doing more interesting things. I'd like to explore what's happened to you all since and whether the changes in direction have been good and how much they've been dictated by your visual impairment or other circumstances. Will, you wanted to be producing records, as we've mentioned. Why aren't you? What happened?
Well, when I graduated uni, the music industry wasn't doing so good at the time. And it was also actually around about the same time where a lot of the technology that was being introduced in studios was very touchscreen, not necessarily accessible for blind and visually impaired folks. And I had a really fantastic opportunity to take part in an internship at another bank in technology. And that kind of opened my mind to just how many different jobs, technology jobs and specialisms there were. And so I think for me, it was a case of I didn't know what I didn't know. I started on a graduate programme, and that definitely made a huge difference because I was obviously very fortunate to get onto it. But it meant that the firm were kind of invested in me and the other graduates.
So this wasn't stuff you learnt at school in a way?
Nope.
This was stuff you were picking up afterwards?
100%. So I was over in New York for 4 months, kind of doing a computer science degree almost, but very condensed. Super intense, very, very, very hard. But I learnt a heck of a lot. I still love music. and I love audio and recording, but I do enjoy the kind of where people and technology meet, being that interface between humans, normal human beings, and technology and kind of very, very, very technical folks.
Roshni, you wanted to pursue your interest in Eastern thought and music. You're now collecting our VAT. How did that happen?
Yeah, that definitely wasn't part of the plan. So when I spoke to you in 2003, I was working at the BBC and top of my game and doing my dream job, essentially. My contract came to an end. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. I went over to Karachi in Pakistan to have a holiday with somebody that I met when I worked at the BBC. The holiday ended up lasting 3 years.
I wish I could have one of those.
Well, I did end up working. I ended up producing daytime output for a radio station there, and I had an absolutely amazing time. But when I came back in 2006, the media industry had changed quite a lot. People were freelancing, wasn't really finding the work opportunities that I would have wanted. So I did kind of one job after the other, wasn't really finding my niche. And then somehow in 2011 ended up working in the civil service in HMRC, doing just kind of entry level, not very interesting stuff, but a bit kind of like Will was saying, I could see that the opportunities were there to progress. And I was getting too old to move around. So I decided to stick with it. And now, a few years later, I'm still there and training to be a tax specialist. So it's been an interesting journey.
It's certainly not exactly what you were foreseeing, though, at the time. No. OK. Let me bring in Paul and Martin. I don't want to fall into the trap of talking to you as if, because you're twins, you're joined at the hip. But there are obviously similarities in your background and in what you wanted to do. I don't think either of you are doing exactly what you were hoping for. Paul, let me start with you. Give us a kind of quick rundown of what's happened.
When I, that interview, I think was we 17 then? I think
you were 17, 18 maybe, just about old enough to go into pubs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, after that, I went to college in Hereford for 2 years, and I actually studied music technology there, which was really, really great. But when I left, I lost interest in it. I just sort of moved away from it, and then I was with my wife-to-be at that time. We obviously moved out the house. It was a big step, lots of things going on, and then my son came along.
The way they do.
Yes, they do. Complete surprise, but an absolutely fantastic surprise. I did do work at my local blind society, doing transcription work. I will say some of that did actually include creating audio CDs for the clients. Like we'd do like a summer CD or a Christmas CD. I used audio editing software to edit it. So I suppose to a certain extent I did exercise a bit of my knowledge, not mixing records or anything like that, but I was still dealing with audio, which was actually really, really interesting. But then I moved to Wales after I got married. So then I'm still hunting at the moment for something that I enjoy.
You're in a fairly sort of rural place, and this is quite significant rural for blind people in a way. Rural places, very nice, very attractive, but things like public transport, getting around, and maybe jobs, a bit harder to get.
Yes, I mean, a lot of the work is seasonal, because in those sort of work environments, I suppose a lot of employers want someone quickly to get into the role of this, that and the other. Obviously, there is like access to work. Obviously, they are helpful, but in this kind of scenario, maybe working from home for someone like myself would be more beneficial.
And maybe more possible now. The climate for that is better. Yeah. Let me bring in Martin, because you also, I think, struggled to find work and have done other things. Why do you think it's so tough?
I don't know. I mean, certainly for myself, being wanting to be a radio presenter, I actually did fulfil that. I've had a bit of a break from it, but I've been on numerous internet radio stations and really enjoyed it, playing like different music. In regarding to work, certainly for myself, I think it was a confidence thing for me. And certainly the stuff I'm now getting into, like the server work, and I'm trying my hand at computer programming and, things like that, I actually do really enjoy. So I really am really hoping and praying that if I can get someone alongside me or really have the confidence to sort of get a course going and really get into the server stuff, really make something of it.
I was just wondering, Roshni, back on this, because you and now obviously in what is quite a good and I suppose you could say safe job in a sense. But it sounded as if you went through periods when finding a job and the job you wanted was tricky.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. And I feel like this is going to make me sound really old now, but I feel like for our generation, there were quite specific challenges because we were right in the middle of a period where, you know, most of us grew up with Braille. We didn't really have computer access. It kind of came when we were in our 20s, and a lot of our patterns of surviving in a sighted world were already formed. And that too during a period where the technology was developing, but it wasn't quite there where it is now. And I think that definitely limits the practical possibilities that you have. And I still think even today, with the technology being much better, I still think we are very limited in terms of controlling our professional narrative.
I mean, I knew we'd talk about technology a bit. I think it's significant. It plays such a big part in all our lives, whether we're good at it or not.
I'm still resisting using a touchscreen phone. I can't bear it. I'm definitely pretty slow when it comes to technology, but it has revolutionized the way in which I do my job. And there is no way even 10, 15 years ago, I think I would have been able to do the kind of work that I'm doing now. So it's definitely key to our quality of life.
Roshni, I'm with you. Really. I find touch, smartphones.
Oh, I swear by my iPhone.
Well, that's the point.
So many people do, and I wish I could. I went to a workshop at a blind society to learn it because I thought I need to learn how to do it. And after it took me like half an hour to write my name, I thought, do you know what? Like, there's more to life. There's cake. There's just more to be doing than that.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to touchscreens, I kind of dragged my wife kicking and screaming into the 21st century and got an iPhone. And myself, and it sounds like Paul and Martin are all kind of nerds. We love technology, right?
Yeah.
But I'd say with a touchscreen phone, it would take longer than half an hour, and it sucks, and it's painful and difficult and not intuitive. But it's massively worth it. Just the fact that the iPhone's like a portal to so many other things, whether it's your washing machine or your tumble dryer.
It's your own personal computer, isn't it, as well? And
I've got banking apps and things.
It doesn't guarantee it'll be accessible, but if you kind of are able to push through the pain of getting used to the weirdness, and it's weird, it's not natural.
It's hard, but it's worth it. It's worth
Well, I wonder, I'm really interested to know whether it's patience that people haven't got. It sounds to me like Roshni and me are a bit impatient.
I'm definitely
I'm impatient as well, Peter. I'm impatient as well. Oh,
you see, I've got a blind brother and he's fantastic at it, and swears by it, and I just swear at it, basically.
We all do that at time to time, Peter.
It's very voiceover dependent. Do you not find that kind of takes away your confidentiality? Because like if I'm sitting on a train, right, I don't want everybody around me to listen to the contents of my email.
There's nothing worse than hearing someone's voice over like a million decibels on a train. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I really do.
Get yourself some AirPods or headphones, and it's amazing. You can
and it
do
works.
anything you like.
Because you can have Braille displays as well. You can tether your Braille display to it and things like that.
Well, I'm hoping there's going to be some fantastic breakthrough that allows people like me to be able to do this just by breathing on it or saying,
and electrodes on your head.
All you lot will have lost your lead. See, I mean, that's what I'm waiting. That's what I'm waiting for.
Well, Peter, have you got an Alexa yet?
I have got an Alexa.
Yeah. Good for amusing the kids.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. I just want to explore a little bit how, if work's not going particularly well, or if it's difficult, how important other things are. I mean, Paul, certainly I get the impression for you, family is quite important.
Yeah, it's tremendously important. I don't work at present. I'm planning to work. I play my part in the house. I see myself as maybe a bit of a house husband at the moment. And to be honest, I've got absolutely no problems with that. I look after my children, cook, clean, that kind of thing.
Roshni, you've talked about work and the range of things you have done from a work point of view. What about the rest of it, the things that give you pleasure other than work?
Well, I completely agree with Paul. I think having other interests are so important. And I think as visually impaired people, it's really easy to sort of value yourself based on what you output. because society in some ways doesn't value you unless you demonstrate that. So it's hard not to fall into that trap. But my interest in the East has definitely stayed. Obviously, I lived in Pakistan for a bit and learned all the languages that I wanted to learn. I also trained as a yoga teacher a couple of years ago. So I teach yoga and Sanskrit chanting and stuff like that when I'm not working. I enjoy running. I do a bit of creative writing. And although I've not been able to continue my radio work, I'm hoping that I can maybe get into making some podcasts and stuff in the next couple of years.
And I want to put that to Martin as well, because you've talked about the sort of struggle to get jobs and you've talked about your interests. I mean, what are the things that, if you like, give you a buzz?
The work I'm doing for the servers, different server maintenances, I find very appealing. But I also like audio games. It was college, actually, that introduced me to audio games. But I think I've learned a lot since I've left college as well, you know, in terms of confidence, independence, things like that. And I'm at the stage now where I want to look at my growth, who I am and things like that. And it's been an interesting journey for me, but I'm at a place now where I'm feeling a lot more sort of content.
Well, I think you've all raised some really interesting issues, some of which we'll be exploring in the next year. I'm going to end by asking you all the question I asked you last time. That was a mere 20 years ago. Where would you like to be in 10 years' time? Paul?
Oh, okay. Well, I was waiting for someone else to answer that first. I see myself in employment, a nice job, you know, just something that I enjoy.
Still in Wales?
Yes, absolutely. We've got no intentions of moving at all. I am looking forward to watching my children grow up, how they progress in life.
Will?
It's kind of generic, but hopefully employed, doing a job that I find interesting and that enables me to better, look after the family and...
completely given up on the hit
life.
records?
Not for work.
Martin?
Definitely a job regarding my server stuff, because I keep yakking on about that, don't I? But I do love my server stuff, and hopefully, getting a nice job and staying on the radio, because I do enjoy the radio as well.
Roshni?
I hope that I will have passed my degree, she says, nervously waiting. I've got exams next week. I hope that I'll be healthy, thriving. I hope that I'll finally write a book and hopefully making some podcasts.
And you realise that in 2032, I'll invite you all back to see how many of those things have actually come true. And would any of you like to be children again? A simpler time, perhaps?
A little wallaby. Oh, feel his tail, Martin.
It's long. Can't feel that.
We couldn't resist it. Thank you all. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us, and a happy new year to everyone.